Welcome to Strange Stories with the Seeker and the Skeptic. Today we are talking with Flood, paranormal researcher and the host of the podcast Ex V Planis. Thank you for being here with us tonight. We're excited to talk with you.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
So, where did all this start with you? What was your beginnings for strangeness?
Well, I'm actually a lifelong experiencer. I've been experiencing this stuff pretty much ever since I was a kid. In my later adolescence years through my younger adult years, that kind of all got put on the back burner because life got in the way, and you kind of got to get a foothold and become an adult. And it really wasn't until about a year before COVID hit. I was bored and I was just trying to find something to do. And a friend of mine told me about this show, Hellier.
Hmm.
I was like, you should really check this out. I'm like, I cannot do the paranormal shows, man. I just they're so hokey, and I like if I ever see Zach Baggins out in public, I'm probably gonna punch him in the face. Like, I can't do this stuff. But he's like, no, 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 you got to give this one a shot. And so I did. I'm like, this is kind of interesting, and you know what? It's kind of adventurous. Let's go out and try some of this stuff. So we bought a spirit box and we went out to a notable site here in North Carolina. First time we ever try to go out and do anything, we start getting hits. And so that kind of that really kicked off the modern interest that I have in it, and it's really kind of consumed my whole life. When they tell you this stuff really will swallow you whole, they weren't kidding
Hmm.
at all. I'm sure you two can both agree.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Oh, for sure. I'm from Lumberton near
North.
Fayetteville,
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
so that is a place that is well steeped in lots of strange stories, and we lived in a house there in the late '80s and early '90s that had a lot of activity in it. So I'm with you on the haunted North Carolina thing. So you're in the Triangle, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, all right, you understand. You've been to North Carolina. Dude, this place is like a never-ending gold mine of high strangeness. So, but the thing that kind of makes us stand out other than other paranormal podcasts is we actually go out there and like it's more than a podcast. We are a group of paranormal researchers and field investigators who share a curiosity for all of this stuff. And the podcast is just kind of an outlet or a way for us to document it and share it with everybody. Um, but it's yeah, it's been a wild trip with all this stuff.
I love that your I guess I'm gonna call it your initiation point was the same as ours, is Hellier. And
It
the
hooked you guys too, right?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it was Hellier and Twin Peaks. We were watching both of those shows at the same time.
We really have, but this has been long overdue then, as you can tell between my background and how we
Yep.
started this conversation off.
Yep. It's wild. But I mean, definitely just expanded things for us, got us curious,
Yeah.
talking about our experiences, growing up, each of us having strange things happen. So what were some of those early experiences for you? Like when you were a kid, what were you going through? What were you experiencing?
So at the time when I was growing up, I really thought that this was just a recurring dream, but now I know better. It felt like a fever dream. When you're younger, if you get sick, you have these wild nightmares that tend to, send you screaming like night terrors and stuff. So I keep having this same one over and over again. And at the time, I was afraid of the dark, so I'd ask my parents to, leave the lights on the landing so I can, see and hear footsteps and stuff like that. And the dream would always be the same. Like I would start hearing footsteps coming up the stairs, and they're really, really heavy and slow. I mean, bunk, 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 really, really like shaking the whole house with each footstep. And eventually I would start to see a shadow kind of get cast from the landing onto the wall. And it's always kind of scattered as it moves up the stairs past my field of vision. Then it'll get to the top of the landing, and then I'll hear it turn and start walking towards my room. And that's when I can actually see the full shadow. And it's a shadow of a man about 6 feet tall with a hat. And it keeps moving closer and closer to the door. And starts to lean in, and that's as far as a dream ever gets. I can just start to see him peering around the corner and put his hands right around the edge of the door frame, and that's usually when the story ends. Now, it could have been just a dream, but you fast forward to to damn near 37 years later. Yeah, I've had some really really weird experiences in the field, and I've seen shadow entities, and now like when I read the first description of the Hat Man that I ever did, my heart sank. It was
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. I'm like, that's definitely what that was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost positive of it. Um, Beyond that, I've had a couple of kind of random passings with apparitions and ghosts in my youth, but that all kind of went away whenever adolescence came along. You know, more important things than strange things lurking in the darkness.
Mm. Do you feel like your attention was just elsewhere, or do you feel like something kind of closed you up during that time?
Oh no, I definitely had just way too much going on in my life to give it attention.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
but real quick, I do remember what I was going to get into there for a minute. The high strangeness in this state is unparalleled to almost any other state that I've lived in. So since we do like to do all of this field investigative work, like this place is a gold mine. I got episodes for years to go. I mean, we're planning on going west, but in the meantime, it's rich out here, baby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've we used to live in Virginia and we've driven like through North Carolina. We went to Lumberton just to kind of see where he lived before. And I just feel like North Carolina has a different energy than other places that I've been to before. And I don't know that I can like describe exactly what it was. I know Lumberton to me felt very like heavy. Like that was definitely a strange feeling, but like we've driven a lot on just like the back roads of North Carolina and it just feels different. So I'm
Hmm.
not surprised that there's a lot of high strangeness going on there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's tons of stuff happening. Have you guys ever heard of the Brown Mountain Lights?
Mm-mm, I have not.
Okay, you have? Okay.
I have
Um,
she probably has not though.
Mm-mm.
so this is a fun little local story for the state here, and it's something that we've witnessed ourselves. Hopefully, we're going to see it again this October if all goes well, and they decide to come out and show us. There, people refer to them as ghost lights. Other people refer to them as UAP, or other people just call them orbs. And I don't know what they are, but that stuff is real, and they pop out of an area of Linville Gorge known as Table Rock, where the mountain kind of comes to a peak and then it flattens off. It's very, very picturesque, absolutely gorgeous up there. And around usually in the fall, as the sun starts to go down, you'll start to see these balls of light slowly curl up out of the top of Table Rock, and they slowly make their way down into the valley. Our interaction with them were these things moving at like 60, 70 miles an hour as they were reacting to a laser pointer that I was pointing down into the valley. Stuff is
Wow.
It's just a really weird state, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not complaining.
No. Lots of opportunities to investigate. Do you have any
Hmm.
theories for yourself of what they are?
Okay, so all right, that's gonna go into some broader questions,
Sure.
because I've been at this for a while, and at this point, I've experienced the whole rainbow of paranormal colors. Like you name it, I think I've just about come across it. And I am starting to lean into this like unified paranormal theory that it's all the same thing. It's just kind of depending on who's looking.
Yeah.
Um, so let me stew on that, and I'll get back to you. It might take me a while, like might take me a couple of years because I'm
Mm-hmm.
developing my thesis here, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I do think that whatever we saw there was definitely moving in intelligent responses to what we were doing. Um, it certainly wasn't malevolent or scary in any way, shape, or form. I'm not sure if it's just some unknown natural phenomena or if it is something that we would refer to as UAP or potentially elemental, multidimensional, something like that. because they did end up popping out of existence when they were done playing with us. They slowly showed up when they first started like playing with us, and then whenever they were done, it's like all come together and like bye.
Hmm.
Like later, you totally forgot to take a picture. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. Where's the video camera?
Yeah,
Yeah.
while we gave up on it, like no
Uh-huh.
video camera was going to be able to capture the
Uh-huh.
detail that far down in the valley because this was almost like half a mile down and away from us that this was
Gotcha.
going on. I
Yeah,
just had an industrial grade laser pointer that allowed a direct beam over there. But as soon as I broke that thing out, they just started following all the patterns that I was doing. I had them doing massive figure eights over the span of like a half-mile area. It was ridiculous.
that's really cool.
Yeah. At this point, I've really given up on even trying to get video footage because
Hmm.
if you spend your entire time with your nose in a screen, you're gonna miss what's happening right in front of you,
Hmm.
and that's what it's all about.
Hmm.
Anyway,
So, I mean, tell us, I know that you're still stewing on your thesis, but I would love for you to just tell us more about your unified theory.
um, the further down the rabbit hole I go, I tend to get a little bit closer to Jacques Vallée, Johnny Mac, Robert Bigelow territory, which is like the missing piece to this whole puzzle that we haven't really figured out how it fits in is consciousness. That's the big missing part of all this. And at this point, I've seen too many occasions just with my team alone where something definitely happens, an event happens, and everybody witnesses it. But in debriefing, we come to find out that not everybody saw it or experienced it the exact same way. Something
Interesting.
happened, and everybody would verify that, like, oh, yeah, something definitely happened. It's just it happened a little bit different to me. And my favorite like example, and anybody who's listened to me before knows I just beat this one into the ground, but it's one of the best examples that I can possibly give. We went to Waverly Hills Sanatorium a few years ago, and I went there specifically to try to track down and witness the infamous Waverly Hills Creeper, which is this humanoid being that tends to crawl on all fours and follow people. I got what I asked for, and it was something else. Needless to say, I panicked when I first saw it, so I Scooby-Dooed it out of there, and I rendezvoused with the rest of the team and told them what happened, and then everybody else was like, "Cool, let's all go out there together." I'm like, "No, but all right, yeah, let's go." So that's when this is where it gets wild. 10 people are all packed into this hallway, the same place that I was, and we're just sitting there waiting. And then sure enough, there I go. I see that elbow popping out of the hallway, and then the moonlight hits it, and I see a bald head sticking its head, like looking around the corner at me. And I nudge one of my cohorts. I'm like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, describe to me what you're seeing." And he describes exactly what I'm seeing. I'm like, "That's insane." And so then I kind of go down the line, and then people start getting weirder response or start giving weirder responses. Like all I'm seeing is a black shadow mass that seems to be contained within like a small bubble that keeps moving in and out of the doorways of the hallway, and it keeps getting closer and further away and closer and further away. Another person said that they were seeing wild displays of orbs, no shadows at all. So th this was the first time that I noticed this, and now every time I go into the field, this is one of the first things that I start looking for anytime that I'm like debriefing the team after an investigation is if we have group experiences, group events where we can all say that happened and we're all experiencing it differently. What does that mean? And I'm not saying that I have the answer, but I do believe that the further we go into consciousness studies, it's starting to answer a lot of these questions. And it's starting to make a whole lot of sense for us to be going back to read the greats. Like John Mack right now he is taking over my nightstand, and he will probably have it like for a very long time after I pepper it with a little bit of valet just for good measure. But yeah, we need to start looking at the phenomenon with a capital P in different ways, and I'm eager to see the field and subfields of parapsychology kind of start making a comeback, because it is. People are starting to take this stuff a little bit more seriously now because, you know, now we're finding out that our government has been chasing UFOs the whole time and even weirder stuff than that. Speaking of which, have either of you guys read Imminent yet? No?
No, not. I have not yet decided if I'm going to read it because, to be really honest with you, I really feel like we're going to have another Trinity on our hands, to where all this, there's just been so much hype of it, and and I love Jacques. Passport Magonia is an amazing book. It is a great encapsulation of a lot of things that I think are likely myself. But then, he spends 2 years talking about all this brand new stuff he's going to bring out in this new book. And then Trinity comes out and he's rehashed all of his previous work and made it turn it into one volume, in my opinion. And the things that I've seen so far about the Louis book, it really feels like this is going to be that same thing.
What would you like my honest review to share with your
Please,
listeners here?
very much
Okay.
so.
It is mostly a giant dressed up nothing burger with a couple of exotic toppings, right? So I'll give it that. Like there is some really, really interesting connective tissue to the whole disclosure story that we have not heard yet. It does help paint a bigger picture of what's going on. You, if he's not lying, then we do get some really interesting stuff about past UFO cases that I had never heard of. And I'm a Rendlesham Forest nut. I had never heard of the CIA being there. That's a new one on me. So it's it I'm not sure if it's worth the read. I'm not sure if it's worth a buy, but what I will say is certainly worth pirating the audio book at the very least. Going over to Spotify, if you have a Spotify account, the audio book is on there, and you should have enough hours to listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah, do that. Do something you can multitask with so you don't have to give it your full undivided attention.
Yeah.
Yeah, that way you can just pay attention because he does go on about his family a lot, and that's not why we came.
Yeah, I do a lot of audiobooks on my walks, and I always listen at 1.1.5 speed. So,
Uh,
you know, I'll probably just power through it as an audiobook then in that case.
hmm.
Um, I think I mean, there's value even to the things that aren't necessarily being completely frank with you, as long as you're willing to have that grain of salt in your mind to be like, maybe this person isn't does not have all of the best intentions all of the time.
Uh, oh yeah, yeah. I don't toss Lou into the savior category like a lot of other people do. I do believe that he has done a considerable amount for the disclosure movement, but hey, man, everybody wants a little bit of attention. Everybody wants a little bit of money, and he has done some terrible things in the name of patriotism. Just saying,
Yeah, that sure
like
seems to be the
really,
case,
really terrible things. Yeah.
and doesn't seem to have any kind of qualms with some of those actions, and that doesn't sit right with me personally. But
Yeah.
that's just me.
There was a
Uh,
really, really interesting anecdote in the book about him and four of his operatives within ATIP um decide to use remote viewing to torture an Al Qaeda guy for several nights in a row by visiting him in his dreams as projected entities. Pretty wild stuff. It's like
Well,
this is yeah,
yeah, on
living
one
weird
hand,
times.
you've got the complete unethical nature of that, and on the other hand, you've got that being an effective thing. Like, it's an interesting situation. all told.
Yeah.
But I think that there are enough people saying interesting things who are ethical that we don't have to pin on all of our, all of our hopes on a single person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Correct.
and
I think anybody with an inquisitive nature has a potential to make a difference in moving forward on it, you know.
for sure.
So if
And
you, oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say, and going back to your question regarding the whole unified paranormal theory.
Mm,
Sorry, we there will be many a tangent here tonight, of course.
That's okay.
Um, I deep down inside, personally, I think all of this stuff is the same thing. It's just it depends on who the witnesses, the observers are. So it is almost like saying there's an observer effect to it,
hmm
potentially a psychic element to it, but yeah, there's something else here that we're missing from the larger puzzle. I'm not sure what it is, but I think we need to start looking at consciousness studies to really figure it out. And my biggest argument for that is it's right under our nose. I see it every time that somebody rehashes through good old Bobby Bigelow's story. This guy invested millions, billions of his own dollars into aerospace research, um, the discovery sciences, basically funded the UFO programs for the longest time. He spends all of his time looking into pseudosciences and all this weird stuff, and then all of a sudden sells off Bigelow Aerospace, sells off NIDS, sells off Skinwalker Ranch, and proceeds to open what? The Bigelow Institute for Consciousness Studies. I think that's the biggest tell that I've ever heard in my life, and I don't think enough people are talking about it.
I think you're the only person I've heard say that out loud, honestly. Like that's yeah, I would have missed it if not for that, to be honest.
It's a conspiracy. No. No, but I find that to be fascinating, and actually, it's not just him. If you even look at Jacques Vallée, the further like the older he's gotten, he's really started to lean into that direction as well, about consciousness studies being a major part of what he refers to as the control system, or whatever the hell this thing is that's you know, toying with us.
So, okay. Seeing it in the lens of it is all one thing, dependent on who you are, how you perceive it. Do you believe that with the phenomena, there is any physicality to it? Like, is there a physical Bigfoot? Are there physical aliens?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, there could be, you're asking if there's like a nuts and bolts aspect to some of this stuff.
Yeah,
I think it's perfectly possible, especially if all right, if we're starting to understand that we know very little about consciousness, and
sure.
we've definitely come to realize that we know very little about real physics or the way
hmm
anything works. If you're talking about something like Bigfoot, it is totally possible that might be a phenomena all within itself, and it could just be more of a matter of, things kind of skipping in and out of our reality, right? But you remember how I said that this all comes back to consciousness, all right?
hmm
Part of the whole paranormal unified theory, or whatever we're going to call this thing moving forward, that has really been haunting me, and it's something that I think about a lot, right? I am wondering if the reason that we're seeing such a massive boom of interest in the esoteric and paranormal and what some would refer to as pseudosciences, now very interesting things within our government, apparently. Um, I'm wondering if this is happening just out of coincidence, or if it's happening universally and we're all taking an interest in it because maybe we are kind of on the verge of the next step of human evolution. Only this time it's not one of, no wings, no tail, which I'm really bummed about, to be honest. I really wanted to be able to fly. It just sounds so awesome. But it's one of the conscious mind and perception. Is that why we're starting to see more of these things? Is our consciousness is now evolving to a point that we're able to perceive things differently? And if we want to take ghosts, for example, if we're talking about our ability to perceive things differently and therefore perceive time differently, maybe it's less of a, oh gosh, it's a ghost, and maybe our consciousness or theirs are actually dipping in and out of a different point in time. We're still in
Hmm.
the same spot, but our consciousness is briefly dipping out of what we refer to as our timeline because we can now see the whole of time a little bit better, if that makes any sense. And is this why more and more people are seeing UFOs or UAPs in the sky these days? Because the perception is changing and people can see more of it because we are evolving to do so.
Yep.
It certainly seems like something woke up inside of me after I came back to start studying this stuff after years of lack of an interest. And I mean, it's almost like any muscle or anything that you learn, the more that you start flexing it, the more it's going to show up and the more you're going to see it. I keep trying to tell people if you will just go outside for 15 minutes during the day and 15 minutes during the night and do nothing but just lay down on the ground, stare up in the sky, I 100% guarantee you will see a UFO within the first 2 weeks. Just 30 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day, 15 minutes a
Hmm.
night. I promise you'll see one. And it might be mundane, but you'll see one. It usually is mundane. They're usually not as exciting as most people describe them. Have you guys ever seen a UFO yourselves?
Well, yeah, I
Uh,
mean, I'm from North Carolina. I've seen lots of UFOs.
Okay.
When I was 11, there's two fast and decent ones. When I was 10, this is when we lived in Lumberton, North Carolina, which is very close to Fayetteville. If you've ever read Chris Blood's,
Vietnam.
yeah, exactly. Anyone who's ever read Chris Bledsoe's UFO of God, they've read about
All
Fayetteville.
right. Talk about synchronicities. I was just listening to an episode about this right before we hopped on the phone. That's hysterical. I
Nice, that's hilarious.
don't know. No clue what these things are. But they seem real friendly, so I'm gonna go out and try to touch one this October.
There you go.
If I don't come back, I'm probably okay with it. Don't worry. Like,
Just
get
went
me
on a
off.
little trip. Yeah.
Yeah. Get me off of this rock.
Everyone's
I
crazy
volunteer.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, please.
You're
I,
in
I
you're in the Triangle, right?
Yep,
You know where Youngsville is, right?
I do. Yeah.
Near Wake Forest. I spent my teen years in Wake Forest. There is a this is just a thought, and it might not be there anymore. This was in the '90s, but in the '90s there was this the denomination was Christian. It was a Christian church in that town that even the pastor of that place wouldn't be there after dark. They they saw so many things. I saw things. We attended there briefly when I was a teenager. It may be worth seeing if that place. I believe it was called Youngsville Christian Church, and it might be worth looking at.
Yeah, double check the name and let me know if it's still there. I'll try to go check it out. I will say that we have access to a number of places in downtown Wake Forest now, and pretty much whole place is haunted. Like every other building is haunted, and now we're starting to get to know all of them. As a
That's
matter of fact,
awesome.
we might be hosting some public events here in North Carolina around spooky season, so we'll see.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
That's an interesting town. There's a lot of weird history in that town for sure.
it is. It's a strange subdivision of the triangle. Yeah, all of them have their quirks, though. Like Durham's funky in its own way. Chapel Hill's a little stuffy and preppy. Raleigh is like your new hipsters. Wilmington is just Wilmington, just like Asheville is just like Asheville is just Asheville. You really don't have a comparison for that. It just is its own thing. But also incredibly haunted.
So I've listened to quite a few episodes of your podcast, and something that I seem to hear coming up fairly often that I'm interested in. I've not done this before, and I'm in the process. We're in the process of considering getting the equipment for maybe doing some SD stuff up here because we've moved to
Hmm.
central New York, and there's some really strange stuff up here,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of things have happened here. A lot of people have had a lot of experiences, and I, for what I can tell, there's not been a lot of that done in this region. Any tips on maybe starter equipment or what to do, what not to do, anything like that for us or for anybody who might be listening to this who's just considering dipping their toe in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so your tried and true idiot proof way to get started on this is to I know that they kind of have a monopoly on it, but just go ahead and go with ghoststop.com's standard SB7, the Spirit Box 7. This is the one that you see in all your favorite ghost shows. It does work very well. It's pretty solid. However, the sound on it does not work very well at all. So what you will want to do is get a nice solid pair of noise canceling headphones or noise isolation phones to make sure that nobody outside's words or sounds can get in. That's the most important thing that you want to make sure that you have a tight sound around your ears as you're doing a spirit box session because you want to make it impossible for you to potentially hear somebody saying something. Um, Beyond that, get a good blindfold. You know, as they say in Daredevil, you lose one sense and the others are somewhat enhanced. There is some truth to this, so definitely like get yourself a blindfold, something like that. If you have the option, I personally have found if you have the option to sit somewhere where you can feel relaxed and suspended, like a hammock or something like that, that also adds to kind of like the sensory
Mm.
deprivation feel. Um, and yeah, I think that's as far as equipment goes, that's a really, really good start. And then also get yourself a small handheld digital audio recorder um, for attempting to record EVPs or go vintage with it. Go to your favorite thrift store and go find one that plays old school magnetic tapes. And I mean, depending on who you talk to, there's chances that you could catch them on either way. So I try to actually keep one magnetic recorder and then one digital recorder on every investigation.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah. And beyond that, I would say, be respectful to whatever you're trying to communicate and have fun. Yeah.
How do you
And be,
approach oh, go ahead.
and be very, very patient. These things take a while.
Hmm. I'm sure. How do you approach an investigation? So like there's a place that you want to research, like what's kind of your process?
Well, kind of depends. If I get a chance to go to a place that I'm already aware of, then I already have a baseline for what to expect there. So the investigation moves a little bit differently. Like I'll be like, okay, we already know that this type of phenomena is there. These are the things that are reported. These are the areas of activity. So let's try to set up in those areas. Um, and when we do spots like that, like we'll get all the equipment set up. We'll get a rundown of the house, and then after a while, we just kind of prop our feet up. The best thing that you can take on a paranormal investigation, the best tool that you have, is your own body and your own sixth senses, because everybody's got that sixth sense. If you don't believe me, like if you've ever been able to tell that somebody has walked into a room without seeing them, there you go. Um, So that's the best tools that you can bring. Don't get lost too much into the equipment side of things. Although I do love kind of the basic setup of the Estes session. It's a really, really interesting thought experiment. And at this point, I've had great success with it. I don't understand why it works, and it doesn't always work, And that's the other thing. One of the reasons that I loved Hellier so much is that they weren't afraid to show you just how agonizingly slow and how sometimes like it all is, and how sometimes nothing ever happens.
Hmm.
Sometimes it can be years.
Yeah.
I'm
For
going through
sure.
a dry spell right now. I haven't had anything like come after me since I left Mississippi. So I'm not too surprised about that.
I mean, aside from the lights, what would you say is like the strangest thing you've encountered?
Oh, I've definitely. I mean, at Waverly Hills, we had the creeper, and then there
Hmm.
was also a trio of shadow entities that were 7 feet tall that were following us around all night. That was
Hmm.
uncomfortable. Um, Sally House was pretty bizarre. Actually, that one was pretty straightforward. It just first night wasn't pleasant. Second night was. We changed our attitude, and so did the house. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, yeah. If you treat it differently than shock jockers, then it'll give you a very different experience. It'll be a little bit more personal and touching and moving.
I
Uh,
can't watch stuff like that, man. It just
Yeah.
like it. For one thing, I have a hard time taking it seriously. But then also like the times when something actually does seem to be happening, and they've been negative and disrespectful, and then they act surprised that something negative has happened to them. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
dude, like what do you think is going to happen?
Well, to be clear, we never went in there negative at
Oh,
all.
sure.
Yeah.
I
It's
didn't think you
just we
did.
went in there with hoping to specifically interact with again like one particular phenomena that resided there.
Hmm.
And it I mean it reacted to us, but it was not fun. Like it was
Hmm.
so we decided to completely shift our attitude and be like, "Hey, we're sorry. We're totally sorry. If we were being dicks, we weren't trying to be antagonistic. We were just trying to reach out to a specific type of entity that lives here. And if they don't want to talk with us, that's cool. We'll leave it alone." And the rest of the time, it was a completely different feel. It was very lighthearted, and very, very moving, and a lot of personal stuff directly at me and Jill and Alejandro as well, which I thought was interesting. Um, but most recently, we did spend about 5 days camping right next to the infamous Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
That was interesting. The whole trip included bizarre visions of what I could only describe as what looked like 2D clip art that got dropped into reality. Some shadow entities, some missing time, perhaps. Definitely a lot of UFO action. Some weird random number generator stuff going on. And ever since, oh, a magnetized car.
hmm.
And I was buzzed by UFOs for a couple of months after we returned from it. A couple of other people on the team were too.
Meaning they would just kind of follow you around, like you'd see them a lot, or yeah.
It's always when you least expect it. Like
Uh-huh.
I had like I'm an insomniac, so usually around 3:30 every night I'm like, I can't sleep. I'm gonna go out and grab a smoke. I would take 2 steps outside and I would take 2 puffs and I would look up and like there's this little rusty orb, a red rusty orb. I like to point out that's very different. It's not like the super shiny ones that we see or the glossy one. This looked like a rusty cannonball with some strange seams in it.
Uh-huh.
And it would just sit there and like sit there and look at me. And anytime that I would like focus on it, it would dart directly out of my direct field of vision. And then as soon as I look at it again, it would dart directly out, still be on the periphery, but never allow me to look directly at it. Same thing again when I pulled out the phone, it just started bouncing all over the place and then it took off. It is incredibly frustrating doing this stuff, like pursuing this shit and trying to be a legitimate investigator. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I can
Oh,
curse
you
on
can
here.
swear. It's
Oh, for
fine.
sure, man.
Um, yeah, yeah, it's I try to do this with as much credibility as possible, but the shit will not let you
Yeah.
watch it. It will not let you catch it. I am gonna like I am Wile E. Coyote. This is my Roadrunner, and it will kill me.
Oh
No,
my.
it's gonna be the death of me, and I accept my fate. I go willingly into that cold night.
I know. I mean, like the people who are like actual, well, not even skeptics, like debunkers, right? Because Jonathan has a different relationship with the word skeptic, but like, they're always saying like, well, where's the evidence? Where's the videos? Where's the pictures? And I mean, I think you're definitely correct that if it's like it knows it's being observed,
Yeah.
or not even observed, because it sounds like you can observe it, but as soon as you try to capture it in some way, it's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I mean that's why I have always liked the analogy of the trickster image in conjunction with the paranormal stuff, which is it's why you get things like, this potential connection between, old fairy stories and, what we consider the phenomenon now is, obviously these are, shades of
Pass,
the same thing.
passport to Magonia territory.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is
Exactly. Or
definitely something that I keep going back to.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I remember when I was like, I think I was 16 when I read The Eighth Tower by John Keel.
This is cracking me up. It's sitting right over on the far side of the desk. I'm in the process of rereading it right now. That's now the third time that's happened in different interviews over the last couple of weeks. Keel's
Nice.
making a comeback in the collective unconsciousness, my friend, or something. Something's going on.
Mhm.
Well, I've had lots of things in the last year or so dealing with Eighth Tower. In June of last year, I actually got it on Audible. I was like, because like I said, I like to listen to these things while I'm walking, and he mentions the date, June 23rd in Eighth Tower. June 23rd of that year of last year is the year we started Hellier. And I looked back at our Amazon watch history to make sure that I was right about that, and it was. So that was when we the day we watched the first episode of Hellier and the first episode of the second season of Twin Peaks. Which if you really want to screw with your own brain, watch Hellier and Twin Peaks at the same time. Um,
I have. I have. Because I'm that mad. And you know what? It works for me. I'm fine with it. I think it's great. No, no, it's yeah, to see Twin Peaks, that's a whole other conversation. If you ever just want to nerd out on that show, have me back on. We're gonna need a couple of bottles of wine. It's gonna get bad. It is. I am one of the biggest, if not the biggest Twin Peaks snob that there is. I'm pretty insufferable about it. I'm not a lot of fun at parties. I'm worse about Twin Peaks than I am with the paranormal, if that's any indication. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Not
funny.
holidays are not fun around the Killian household. I can promise you that. I mean, they're fun for me.
Like, will you just shut up about Twin Peaks?
Yeah, 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 but
Um,
you don't seem to understand. David Lynch was making a fourth dimensional hyper sigil. Don't you see what was going on in The Return? Don't you see? He was trying to rewrite reality to save us. David Lynch is a hero.
I just want one 15-minute conversation with Mark Frost. That's all I want.
Yeah, the one who never speaks, right?
Yeah, like every once in a while he'll
Or
like tweet
rarely,
about
rarely.
he'll tweet about baseball every once in a while and be like, "That's not what we want to hear from you, dude,
Yeah, yeah.
at all. We want to hear about all this because, like, the secret history of Twin Peaks and like the final dossier and stuff he wrote. And have you read that stuff? I'm
Oh,
sure you probably have.
got a whole bookshelf of Twin Peaks stuff. I got all the books, man. All of them.
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
That's too funny. Well, I would say as the spiritual seeker, I am with you in terms of a missing factor is consciousness. And I do feel like that human consciousness is evolving. And I think you're probably spot on of like, that is part of the reason why people are more perceptive to these things. We are changing. What we can access with our own minds is changing. So I'm with you.
A lot of the less restrictive, non-religious forms of
Hmm.
spirituality that have been kind of stifled and silenced for a long time are really kind of starting to make a comeback. Like esoteric knowledge, like real magicians, real magic,
Yep.
and occult practitioners doing amazing things with this. Not, you know,
Yep.
not just for the sake of show, but people who are actually practicing this stuff.
Yep.
Like just because I always have to plug it. If you've never read Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine, get your hands on it. It's amazing. Yeah, okay.
It's
Yeah, I see him.
super, super interesting. Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
it's what a great introduction to the modern type of magic, right? I love it. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, so I experienced a lot of stuff in the first 20 years of my life, and then I walked away from a bunch of stuff, including that stuff until last year. So like I had a 2 decade kind of hiatus in a way. And so like over this past year I have fully immersed myself in all of these things. I have had a lot of catching up to do. And I think I read that one about 4 months ago, and it's super super interesting. The ideas behind chaos magic is really really wild. The connections to all this stuff, and like Jung's Red Book and what he was really doing, and all of these things. Like it just there's so much, man.
There's very much a Jungian aspect to chaos magic, especially when looking through the lens of Phil Hine. Now, depending on what school of thought you go with, because I mean, you can go with Omar Austin Spare and get real crazy with it if you want. Have you looked into him yet?
Oh, I have Osmond Osman Spare's tarot deck beside me over here.
Okay, right on. Um, yeah, so his stuff is definitely more uh, impressionistic. Definitely surrealistic, man. It
Very
is
surrealistic
out
for
there,
sure.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the way that the guys from the last podcast on the left put it. Is like, unfortunately, when it comes to Spare, the first book that you should read on chaos magic is unfortunately the last book that you should read on chaos magic, because man, it is dense. Like, it is a lot to wrap into. But I do love the whole automatic writing thing. That is an automatic drawing. That's uh that's actually become a very, very useful tool on investigations for us.
Oh, really?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we've
don't
tried
doubt that.
yeah, we've tried that. We've also tried remote viewing in purported haunted locations. Surprising results there as well. We tried remote viewing sessions out in Uinta Basin right next to the old Skinwalker Ranch, and all we got was like a headache.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well,
like
that's kind of a result in and of itself, though, right?
that's what I thought, but still, I was only there for a few nights. So it was a little disappointing. I was like, come on, man. Ow. I paid
I
for
made a
this.
real concerted effort to try to watch that show a while back, and I can't handle television formatting and modern
Yep.
like all of the weird bumper music and the repeating yourself and the the and I understand. I know that TV is consumed by people who have televisions, and that's not been true for me for 15 years. And I understand that makes me a jerk in the way to some people, but like
Well,
I really feel like I do remember when I saw commercials in my life, and I don't think I needed all this repetition of what was just said 5 minutes ago, even when I had commercials to contend with.
you
And
mean
because of
spending
that formatting, I can't
spending an
consume it.
entire third of the next segment rehashing what you just did on the last segment?
Yeah,
Is that what you mean? Is that what you're talking about? I
Yeah,
that
have
you
is
no
what
can.
idea
he's
what you
talking
mean.
about.
No, no, it's totally fine. That's always been the way that it's been. It's perfect. I love it. No, I'm right there with you. It drives me absolutely bananas, and I I would love to get my hands on like I want to contact Brandon Frug or Fugel and just be like, hey, dude, just give me the footage. Let me edit this for you, please. Please. I promise it'll be better than this. And it'll be shorter too. If you stop repeating yourself, it'll only have to be 6 episodes. You save so much on your budget and people will actually care. because I get bored listening to you repeat yourself. Please stop. Ugh.
It's
As you can tell, I am very, very passionate when it comes to paranormal entertainment. It
yeah.
even makes me cringe just to say
Mm.
that statement. Ugh.
I'm sure that there's a reason why the amount of time and money has been poured into that place as there is. I'm also equally sure that it is very unlikely that any of the real true reason for that is ever going to be freely given to the public. If only we're given the amount of time that has been dealt with, nah, probably not.
I don't know, man. As long as Jay Stratton is alive, we do have hopes for getting like the full load of information somewhere down the line because he wants it to get out. And people forget that like Luis Elizondo might be getting all of this attention and all these other people are getting all this sorts of attention, but Jay Stratton, that was the guy who was making the real stuff happen behind the scenes. So if he's driven to do it, I am confident the disclosure is coming. It's just never going to get here as fast as we want. All of the hardcore tinfoil hat wearers who keep telling us 2027 is the year that it all like the bottom drops out. Maybe they're right, and maybe we'll get lucky. And you know what? I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to take my hands off the wheel. So let our reptilian overlords just come on in here and give it a shot. I mean,
Sure.
I would almost rather live in They Live than 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm pretty
That
sure
just
that I'm still gonna have to pay rent either way. So like,
In Texas.
yeah, taxes, you know. I understand a bit of why people care about like the quote official disclosure thing, but I mean, honestly, I don't think I need the government's permission to believe that something is in the sky. Like, I mean, and it's kind of my take on it is like, I don't need
Well,
them
they
to
might have more
officially.
information than what we have currently. And I mean, I want to know what they have to say. But what is the significance of 2027? Like, are the tinfoil hat people saying like this, there's a reason why 2027?
well, yeah. So, and actually, it kind of speaks to what you were just discussing. So, apparently, um, as the rumor mill turns, if if you believe any of this at all, apparently 2027 is the year that the phenomenon, whatever it is and whatever is in control of it, is going to reveal itself. Which is why there's been a steady paced disclosure effort going on in order to kind of prime us and prep us for the big revelation in 2027 when they finally just start popping up and being like, hey, yeah, we're real. Get used to it. So in theory, yeah, sometime in 2027 or maybe early 2028 is when this big unveiling is supposed to happen. I'll believe it when I see it. That being said, though, there is some interesting and compelling evidence to point towards something big like coming down the pipeline. There is. And I never say anything like that lightly because I don't really do the whole conspiracy hat thing. I do my research, but there definitely seems to be something brewing, and I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'll keep my eyes on it. Like Lou's book almost seems like a conk look over here, so you can miss what's really going on.
Yeah,
Interesting.
Yeah, does have me curious. We're just gonna have to watch. It's a conspiracy.
I personally just have a little bit of a hard time with the whole like capital C conspiracy people, like the really involved ones, for the simple fact that I don't have enough faith in humanity to expect that more than three or four people can keep a secret that big for that long.
I don't know, man. If we're talking about some of the technologies that they discuss in these files, then it's possible. It is. Look, I still don't think we know the whole truth about Kennedy, you
That
know.
is that is
Right.
kind of
So
the
yeah,
hard one
let's
there.
take aliens out of the equation on
Yeah.
Right.
that. I know we don't know the whole fucking story about 9/11, pardon my French, but we already like we find out later, way later what the war on drugs and then satanic panic was all about. You see, like it's so no, I give humanity a little bit more credit for being more craftily diabolical than we want to believe they are capable of. I don't want to believe that they're that capable. I don't want to believe that we have the ability to have that type of cinematic level type of conspiracy going on, but the signs kind of point towards it, and it's really disturbing. Just saying.
Yeah, you make a good point. I'll give you those. Maybe I need to rethink a little bit. I'm always willing to revisit an opinion. That's what opinions are. That's what it's
Well,
supposed to be.
well, we should absolutely revisit it because I should have you guys over on the Patreon because I do a interview series over there where I interview other experiences, and I would love to go way deeper into what you two have experienced along your route.
Awesome.
Your
We
Hey,
road.
would love
absolutely,
that.
man. Yeah,
We would
love to
love
do
that.
that for
Yeah.
sure. Well, thanks for hanging out
Awesome.
with us, man.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was
No, thanks so
great.
much for having me. This has been a blast. And seriously, once I get internet back up, I'm actually having to do this through the hotspot of my phone.
Oh no.
Yeah, we've had squirrels chew through our fiber cable twice now
Oh my
in the last
God.
month and a half. Twice,
Wow.
That's
twice.
wild.
Yeah. So we're switching. Oh, and AT&T is on strike, so we haven't been able to get it fixed. So we're just going to switch over to Google Fiber tomorrow.
All
Awesome.
right. Thank you so much for being here. If you have a strange story you want to share with us, email us at seekerandskeptic@gmail.com. We look forward to talking to you soon.